and energy threat for Ukraine and Central Europe. They were right. We are seeing this threat today. Now, here's the good news. The administration in which you serve, and I will note, you argued to do the right thing. You were overruled by your political superiors in the White House. But the Biden administration can still do the right thing. Secretary Nuland, is it true or false that if President Biden decided to, he could sanction Nord Stream 2 AG today?
The waiver is currently in place. It could be lifted, yes.
Okay, so he could sanction then today. Let me ask you a question. If the Biden administration imposed sanctions on Nord Stream 2 AG, if it halted the certification of the pipeline so that the Nord Stream 2 pipeline did not go online, would that make invasion of Ukraine more likely or less likely?
Senator, it's the German government that has paused the certification of the pipeline itself right now. That certification is not going forward. You know that we believe this pipeline is a bad deal for Europe and a bad pipeline, but I do not believe that anything we would have done with regard to Nord Stream 2 would have changed Putin's calculus with regard to the buildup we have around Ukraine today. I believe he has an ambition to have
So let me ask it another
Ukraine.
way. If Nord Stream 2 goes online and is operational, does that make an invasion of Ukraine more likely or less likely?
Nord Stream 2 is not currently on track to become operational.
If it does, I'm asking a hypothetical. If Nord Stream 2 goes online, I don't think it's coincidental that the predicted date for an invasion is almost exactly when certification is predicted to be over. I don't think that's accidental. So my question is this: if Nord Stream 2 goes online, does that make invasion of Ukraine more likely or less likely?
I believe that President Putin will make his decisions with regard to Ukraine irregardless of what happens to Nord Stream 2. I believe he has an aspiration to have control of Ukraine.
Well, but he didn't do that until the Biden administration waived sanctions. From 2014 until today, he hasn't done that, and it was exactly what Ukraine and Poland warned us, that when this president surrendered to Putin, it would create a security crisis in Ukraine. That's what it's done.
I think we have had all of our colleagues who were present or desirous in WebEx to ask questions. Can I ask you one last set of questions? Is Nord Stream 2 the reason that Putin is supposedly complaining about expansion of NATO?
I'm sorry, Chairman, one more time.
Is Nord Stream 2 the reason that Putin is complaining about expansion of NATO?
No.
Is Nord Stream 2 the reason that Putin complains about supposedly defending Russian speakers in Ukraine?
No.
Is Nord Stream 2 the reason that Putin alleges that Ukraine is not actually an independent country?
No.
I could go down a list. Is Nord Stream 2 the reason that Putin says that Ukraine is actually the provoker in this set of circumstances?
No. And Chairman, if I may, I would just like to put one more fact in the record, which is that between December of 2019, when the PISA legislation was passed, and January 19th of 2021, there was only one sanction applied under it. And since January of 2021, the Biden-Harris administration has sanctioned 17 vessels and 8 people under the PISA legislation in an effort to raise the costs for Nord Stream 2.
Now, our colleagues suggested that Putin stopped at Crimea because he didn't want to ruin the Ukrainian energy infrastructure. But isn't it true that had he marched forward at that time, he would have had probably the control of Ukraine, probably bloody even then, in a different circumstances than far more capable Ukrainian military now, and still Ukrainian nationalism, but nonetheless, that he could have marched forward, and actually he would have controlled the Ukrainian energy infrastructure. Is that a fair statement?
And in fact, you could argue that in the Donbass, he did take control of some 40% of Ukraine's coal reserves, which were a major energy input.
So the fact of the matter is, as much as one would want to suggest that the question of sanctioning Nord Stream 2 is the alpha, the omega, the reason why Putin is acting today because he wants to reconstitute the Russia he knew, the one he laments consistently about, that should be reconstituted. And that's his whole goal, regardless of what happened about Nord Stream or not.
And frankly, Chairman, if we did not have the working relationship that we have with the German government now, we would not be in a position to build the sanctions package that we're working on.
I hope the one thing that anyone in the world who is watching this hearing today takes away is that even on some of the most contentious issues of the day, on this one, there is overwhelming, broad, bipartisan support for Ukraine. There's overwhelming bipartisan support for its territorial integrity. There's overwhelming bipartisan support for swift and robust action. And after conversations with some of the members of the committee, I look to galvanize that in some tangible way legislatively as we wait for the days ahead as to what may or may not happen. With the thanks of the committee for your appearance both here today and yesterday in a classified session, the record for this hearing will remain open until the close of business on Wednesday, December 8th. Ask questions for the record be submitted no later than that time, and this hearing is adjourned.